Season 3 of The L Word was... So I'm recapping it for you so you don't have to watch it. Let's go. So we close out Season 2 with Tina on Bette's doorstep. She confronts Bette.
Are you in love with me?
Because, no surprise, Tina is still in love with her, but...
Just wish that you were fucking better at it.
Yeah, that's a good summary for this whole season. Jump to a year later, and Angie is moving into the UCLA college dorms. As Bette arrives, someone bumps into her car, but apparently she's changed because she doesn't yell.
The only thing you have to do is hold compassion for yourself.
That night, they're at a benefit Tess is hosting at Dana's for the MS Foundation, and when Bette donates one of her favourite art pieces, Tina is floored. She buys it for $10,000, and the natural next step is to head back to Bette's place where they kiss. Angie bursts in on them.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
And is surprisingly not okay with it, given she wanted them to get back together in Season 1, probably because she was reeling from Geordie's breakup with her on her first day of college. It's amusing to see Bette and Tina's reaction.
Did you
Honey,
is there
okay?
something did you forget something?
But being caught doesn't stop them from heading to the bedroom when Angie leaves. The next night at the art exhibition, commemorating the work of Angie's biological dad, we get a throwback to how they originally met, and it's honestly delightful. But then Bette suggests Tina stays in LA and not go back to Toronto.
I just fucked it up.
It takes 2 seconds of chatting to Alice and Shane before it's all happening too fast with an epic running through the streets moment, and I meant to love it, but I'm mostly just pissed that they're leaving for most of the season. Meanwhile, Angie, reeling from her breakup, decides,
This could be like my hoe phase.
okay girl, go get it. She wastes no time, and it turns out this guy, Hendrix, is her poetry professor. No, I take that back, don't go get it. She loses her virginity to him, and the same night he breaks up with her because he says he's falling in love with her but struggling to reconcile her being a student. What a dick. On Thanksgiving, Shane helps her evade him and, like a good chaotic auntie, plants the idea of breaking his window to get back a book Angie had given him. She's taking the breakup hard and refusing to go to the creative class public reading until Bette and Tina and Shane unexpectedly show up to attend. Shane recognizes the professor, Tina gets mad.
Get away from my daughter!
And Angie runs off to Hendrix to apologize. It's back on until he then reveals he's off to New York. Bye! If there is a Season 4, I hope that's the last we see of him. While Tina wants to give Hendrix a piece of her mind, Bette is surprisingly zen. While having burgers, Tina casually suggests they get married, to which Bette whips out the ring she was carrying. So it's their wedding day, and Tina is having a hot flash, so they walk into a fridge and get stuck. Tina is getting frustrated at how well Bette is dealing with it, so Bette lets her in a bet out, demanding Alice call Tasha to get them out. Tina seems to like seeing this side of Bette come out again. They are freed, and after more drama, they get married. And even though their lack of screen time is criminal, I'm still grinning like an idiot as they walk off into the night, hand in hand. A year on from Season 2, Shane and Tess are still together and playing nursemaid to Tess's mum. There is an immediate sense that there is trouble in paradise because Shane seems not super interested in sex with Tess. This is only confirmed when she bumps into Ivy, a sexy hairdresser, at the charity event, and things immediately get heated.
Have a little fun with me.
Okay. Meanwhile, Tess is high on the success of her MS charity event and she wants to buy another bar. Shane and Tess's relationship continues to degrade, with Tess dismissive of Shane, so in an attempt to bridge this widening divide, Shane agrees to the bar Tess wants to open next to Dana's, which sounds like a terrible business decision, but okay. When Tess snaps at her for trying to help with the demolition after a frankly perplexing slow-mo dance with Finley, Shane decides to drop off some old hairstyling products to Ivy, and you can guess what happens next. After hooking up a few times, Shane breaks it off though because she wants to make it work with Tess, but Tess overhears everything and is devastated. They're forced to talk about it when they get stuck on the balcony, and I'm glad that Shane finally articulates what's going on for her.
You changed. And you stopped seeing me.
They're both right. After being rescued, Shane goes to stay with Alice and deals with her emotions in the most Shane way to Shane. So Alice takes her to her work ayahuasca getaway in the desert, and even though ayahuasca doesn't quite work that way, gotta say the whole episode was the most fun of the 3 seasons. Shane is realizing she keeps avoiding taking the leap with her love life because she's afraid to let the playboy part of herself go. With this realization, she goes to tell Tess, but it's not the moment as Tess's mum has died. And while they're hooking up after the funeral, they're not in a good place. voice. Tess falls off the wagon, and at the wedding, Tess gets high, discovers Shane hooking up with the wedding planner, and they have an epic fight just as Tibet is about to go down the aisle. Tess takes off with a random, and then Finley gets a call from the LA police on Tess's phone. Speaking of Finley, she gets out of rehab, and you see she's done a lot of work on herself and trying to make amends to the people she's hurt. Danny doesn't take the apology well, but I'm kind of digging Sophie and Finley now. It's gonna go south though, right? Obviously. She gets offered a job in the bar by Tess, which seems like the worst idea ever, given she's barely recovered, but okay. Keep it in the family, I guess. It comes out that Sophie slept with that someone being Dre. Although they were on a break at the time, Finley is struggling with trusting Sophie in the wake of this news because of the pattern of cheating Sophie has. So Sophie answers Finley's questions about the hookup, and it seems all good until Dre turns up to sing at Dana's, and Finley's response is to pull the fire alarm. Sophie goes on her ayahuasca journey and realizes she's been muting her voice in the relationship, not being herself, after singing an epic song about finding her voice. She calls it off with Finley. With Tess unavailable as support and Finley spiraling, she reaches out to Carrie, who happens to be her sponsor, who is giving off the comforting mum vibes and is exactly what Finley needs. At Dana's Thanksgiving dinner, Finley's mum shows up out of the blue announcing she's getting a divorce. While the conversation is not going well, she decides to make her amends as part of her recovery, and it goes spectacularly pear-shaped. Meanwhile, Sophie is piercing her nipples and trying to make out with women to show how aggressively okay she is with the breakup. She is processing it though, and even garners herself a promotion when she produces an excellent final episode of Alice's show, despite behind-the-scenes drama with Alice, and I'll get into that later. At the wedding, Sophie meets Pippa Pascal, who turned up to see her ex-lover get married for reasons I can't fathom. I'm not really feeling Pippa and Sophie, but if it means Pippa gets to hang around, I'll take it. Meanwhile, as I mentioned before, Carrie is Finley's sponsor, and I'm enjoying her a good deal more this season now that she's not with Tina and sticking her nose in there with Angie when she honestly shouldn't. She bumps into Misty literally and gets a nosebleed, and I'm amused. Finley clocks the vibe and says she'll send in her college application if Carrie asks Misty out.
So you got a date? Well, no, it's not actually a date.
What is it?
I sort of joined her bowling league.
This is probably the most realistic thing that happened on the show this season. After Finley shows up asking to stay following her breakup with Sophie, Carrie takes her along to the bowling alley. Misty is doing that, here, let me show you how to bowl by putting my hands all over you thing, but Carrie is shy about asking Misty out, so Finley just sticks her foot in it by trying to wing woman things. It looks like that was the worst decision, which is so very on brand for Finley, but it actually works out because Misty turns up later to confess that she likes Carrie too, gets invited in, and this is legit my fave couple of the season. Carrie and Misty do a 5k run together, but end up at the Thanksgiving dinner instead of finishing it, and Carrie is all mama bear with Finley when her mum is being a dick. I like it. When Carrie and Finley get home, she has a heart attack, and I was ready for mutiny if they killed Carrie off, but thankfully, she's okay. Both Finley and Misty are taking good care of her and working to get her healthy. Misty has a bit of an ulterior motive, if you know what I mean, but is understanding that Carrie, as a demisexual, needs a bit more time to get comfortable. Also, she just had a heart attack, but that doesn't seem to stop them for long though. Moving on to Danny and Gigi. Danny's arrest at the end of season 2 amounted to nothing much, and she and Gigi are going strong a year later. Danny wants them to move in together, to which Gigi says she has to talk to Natalie because of the kids. Natalie isn't immediately on board, which rankles. Then, Gigi is on her way to the exhibition that Danny is project managing and gets into a car accident. Natalie, still being next of kin, is there before Danny, and Natalie is kissing Gigi? What the fuck? She's just been in a car accident and Natalie is like, this is a good time to land her one?
It was nothing. It was an accident.
Oh, really? Because Gigi is at home convalescing and Natalie comes over to help her get ready.
Sure, that's great.
Gigi confesses that she saw her life flash before her eyes and it was Natalie and her kids she saw. Okay. So I guess this is how it's going to end. Danny sees them holding hands and I'm glad Gigi is being honest, but also no. Talk about it. Figure it out. And now I want an orange. The orange story arc is better than the dismal ending to this ship. To deal with it, Dani hooks up with someone, but she starts to cry over Gigi, just like we're all crying over Gigi. Next thing, she's getting saved from death by scooter by musician Dre, and they're kissing, but they were Sophie's fling when Sophie and Finley were on a break, so Dani decides not to pursue it, and offers to be their publicist instead, because apparently she has 10 different jobs. While managing an event for Dre, the sexy tension is still very much there, and Dani ultimately can't resist, so she slips into the pool for a skinny dip, and well... It's supposed to be casual, but they're getting along well, and Dre is catching feelings, so they end things. At the wedding, Dani takes Molly and calls Dre, saying she loves them and asking them to come, but that hookup from earlier on is also there, and they kiss, and of course, Dre turns up just in time to see it. On to Micah and Maribel. Micah proposes to Maribel and she says no, but she does want a baby. While initially reluctant, Micah gets on board. They get invited to a Halloween party by a queer colleague of Maribel's who is married with kids, so they see it as an opportunity to ask another queer couple more questions about what to expect. Turns out that the other parent is none other than Max, and I'm so pleased to see that Max is in such a good place. They start looking for donors, proposition a stranger at a party, and eventually get some sperm for $700. When it arrives, Micah starts freaking out about it, they fight, and in response, Maribel throws the $700 sperm onto the ground and breaks the bottle. So Micah calls Max and asks if he can come over. Catching up with Alice a year on from season 2, she's clearly dumped Tom and she's getting it on with a Gen Z influencer. She quickly realizes they're not right for her, but when she tries to bring an age-appropriate date to the art gallery opening night, the date starts to pitch some kind of weird schmexy cult thing. So things are going great. Alice would love to find the one, so for the 100th episode of her show, she does a blind date segment. When the third contestant falls through, Sophie manages to convince the coffee cart lady, Taylor, who had flirted with Alice earlier that day, to go on. Alice chooses her, and I'm kinda down with this pairing. They start dating, but Taylor is intimidated by Alice because she feels like Alice is in a different world to hers. When Alice catches Taylor on a date with another woman at the movies, they argue in front of spectators. So that was the end of that.
We just live in different worlds.
I'm normal.
You're not. And you haven't been for so long you can't even see it.
While on her ayahuasca journey, Alice realizes she pushes people away and the reason why appears before her.
Is it really you?
And Alice finally acknowledges that she pushes people away because she's still looking for Dana in every person she dates. And I have to say, I do like how they integrated a guest spot for Dana to come back for, creating a lovely through line for all of the Dana references in the Gen Q era. Dana says that there is a one for Alice out there and that she knows that person in a way. But most importantly,
You have to let me go.
Alice thinks the one might be Tom, but he's about to have a baby, so no. Meanwhile, Alice's breakup with Taylor in the cinema got filmed and is making the rounds of social media, garnering backlash for how out of control Alice really is.
She's trying to give a voice to all the queers. And they turn on me?
With the execs pressuring her to lie low, Alice calls off the season finale of her show, which is where Sophie steps in to produce it without her. Alice instead goes to look for the kitten she recently acquired and finds it stuck in a tree. Tasha is amongst the firefighters that arrive to get Piddles the kitten down, and given how Tasha ended it in the OG L word, there's some tense, angry words exchanged. Fate pushes them together once again when Bette and Tina get stuck in the walk-in fridge the day of their wedding, and Alice has to ask her to get them out. And Tasha reveals that the real reason why they split is because Alice was so clearly hung up on Dana.
Felt like I knew her. In a way.
This revelation shakes Alice and she apologizes. It breaks the tension between them and Alice asks Tasha to dance. And it feels like this is probably the one that Dana was talking about. So, that's the season. A lot of stuff happened, but in all honesty, a lot of it felt narratively pointless, and I didn't care for most of it because the storylines just weren't, as in past seasons, given the room to breathe and grow, giving us half-baked narratives with very little impact. It's criminal that the two biggest ships of the show were allowed to get shipped off or end, and there was just a lot of bouncing around without enough substance to anchor the season. The highlights for me was the music and the musical episode, especially with how they surfaced Alice's unresolved feelings about Dana and the impact on her relationship failures. If you saw the season, let me know what you think. Check out my other videos, and until next time, lady lovers.